Welcome back. This is the 5th video in the Kentucky Medical Cannabis Program's Business Licensing series. If you haven't already, please be sure to watch the first 4 videos before starting this one. You'll find all the videos for this series on the program website or YouTube channel. By now, you should also have the Business Licensing Application Guide to follow along with as we continue walking through the application process. We are now getting into the applicant information. In this video, we'll be going through the sections of the application that require information or documentation related to the applicant or entities involved with the proposed cannabis business. Let's get started. The first tab in the applicant information section is the primary contact tab here. This is where the applicant will provide information for themselves, but not necessarily for the business. Both the applicant and the business contact information can be the same. However, it's not required. Here you will also include information for anyone who has assisted with the application preparation. Here and moving forward, you will find that all addresses provided must be verified. Once you've entered all the address information into the correct fields, you can select the green Verify button. Once you've entered your first and last name, business title, phone number, email address, and a verified street address in the primary contact fields, along with the information requested for anyone who may have assisted with the application, click Save or Save and Next. This will prompt a light box like this, where you will select a verified address provided. If this is not a valid address, the verification will not work. The next section relates to individuals and entities with interest in the proposed cannabis business. Here you're required to identify and provide the contact information requested for any and all individuals or entities with at least 10% equity or similar interest in the proposed cannabis business. This includes any principal officers, board members, and financial sources without direct ownership interest. This section is also used to identify any physician or APRNs with ownership or investment interest in compensation agreement with the proposed cannabis business. This is a regulatory requirement, and you can find the reference to the relevant regulation for that in the guide. The portal allows you to add multiple individuals and entities, so you can add as many as you need. The form will automatically populate fields for an individual or entity based on the selection here. Each individual or entity will be entered into a separate grid, which requires pushing a Save Record button before continuing with the next entry. The Save Record button will add the entry. The Save button at the bottom of this page will save your progress on the page in case you need to exit the system and come back later to complete the application. If you need to remove or edit an entry, make sure all open records have been saved first. If you are providing information for an individual, you must provide their first name, phone number, email address, and a verified residence and mailing street address, in addition to a driver's license number, date of birth, and social security number. Here you must also indicate the role and ownership percentage the individual holds in the proposed cannabis business. If you are providing information for an entity, you must provide the entity's name and any business names, including DBAs if applicable, in addition to the entity type, FEIN number, phone number, and email address with a verified street and mailing address. Here you must also indicate the role and ownership percentage that the entity holds in the proposed cannabis business. Entities must also provide information for a primary contact or responsible person for the business, including a first and last name, business title, phone number, and email address with a verified street address. Next is the Parent Company tab. Here is where you will be providing any information for a parent company of the proposed cannabis business. If you indicate yes, you will need to provide the legal entity name and any business names, including DBAs if applicable, in addition to the relationship or title, email address, phone number, federal tax ID or FEIN number, and a verified physical and mailing address for the parent company. Here you must also indicate the ownership percentage that the parent company holds in the proposed cannabis business. Entities must also provide information for individual owners of the parent company, including the first and last name, relationship or title, verified residential and mailing address, and ownership percentage that the individual owner holds of the parent company. After completing the required fields in this section of the application, you can select Save or Save and Next to go to the next tab, Or you can follow along with me and skip ahead to the Documents tab. Just like in our previous segment, we're going to talk about the documents related to the applicant information requirements. We've broken up this series and the Business Licensing Application Guide into sections based on the related information or documentation throughout the application. You can continue through the application tabs and upload the required documentation at once, or you can add it and save as we go through each section of the guide. It's up to you. If you're working through the guide and uploading the documentation in the sections we provided, please be sure to save your application after each upload or as often as possible to ensure your documents and information stay on file. You'll see an itemized checklist for the documentation we will be discussing in this section and where it can be uploaded on the Documents tab of the application in the guide as well. Documentation with a star on the list and on the Documents tab of the application indicates that it is required to complete the application. In this section, all documentation is required. First, in the resumes or CVs of principal officers and board members area, you will need to upload a professional business resume or CV for each principal officer or board member provided previously and identified as part of the proposed cannabis business. You will be able to upload as many documents as you need to, just be sure to save as often as you can so they stay on file. You will also find examples to reference in the Business Licensing Application Guide. Next, in the Ownership Organization Structure document area here, you will need to upload a document that shows the ownership structure of the proposed cannabis business. Again, you will find examples of what a complete form of documentation for this looks like in the guide. It should contain all of the individuals and entities you have listed as owners in the previous sections of the application. The last form of documentation we're going to discuss is titled The Description of the Duties, Responsibilities, and Roles of Each Principal Officer, Board Member, Employee, and any other individual or entity with a financial interest in the proposed cannabis business who are not involved in the day-to-day operations of the business. Again, we provided an example of what this may look like in the guide and preferred the overview to be simple and straightforward. We would like the documentation to outline the division of duties and responsibilities of the key individuals involved with the operation and of any other individual or entity with financial interest in the proposed cannabis business. We've now wrapped up the applicant information section of the Business Licensing Guidance and Video 5 in the full series. With just one video left, we will be covering the last sections of the application on the legal and payment information. See you in Video 6.